Welcome to an amazing journey through the most mysterious and captivating phenomena ever witnessed in the sky. We will travel to the place where science meets wonder and explanations seem unbelievable. You will hear stories of unusual clouds, shining flashes, and enigmatic objects that appear to wink at us from other worlds. Watch until the end. It is going to be epic and will surely overturn your understanding of what is possible and impossible. Many of us heard in childhood that a falling star supposedly grants wishes. But behind this romantic image lies a very remarkable phenomenon. In space, fragments of rock and ice of various sizes and shapes are flying around. When these cosmic wanderers approach our planet, they collide with the atmosphere, heating up until they glow and leaving a bright trail behind. These objects are called meteors. Sometimes they burn up completely before landing, and sometimes their fragments do reach Earth and become meteorites. It happens that these pieces are not so small. Throughout history, there have been instances when large celestial bodies caused real destruction, leaving craters and frightening witnesses with thunderous rumbles. Recall at least one of the headline-making events that took place in Russia a few years ago. At that time, the shockwave from a meteor blew out windows in buildings and caused a lot of commotion. Scientists from around the world closely monitor such objects because someday even a relatively small asteroid failing to burn up in the atmosphere could affect life on the planet. If you have ever looked up and seen thunderclouds hanging on the horizon, you probably did not notice anything especially unusual. But mammothous clouds can surprise even an experienced observer. Their shape resembles balls or bags, as if they are hanging from the lower part of powerful storm clouds. Sometimes they create the impression that someone literally pressed upward from below the cloud and formed rounded indentations. Usually mammatus as a result of turbulence and rapid cooling of the air. Their presence often indicates storm activity and strong updrafts and downdrafts. Because of their distinctive appearance, these clouds often become the target for photographers and weather researchers. They look especially impressive when the setting sun paints the balls in golden or pinkish hues, creating an unforgettable spectacle. What could be more beautiful than the classic arc of colors stretching across the sky after rain? Many people might think there is nothing more wonderful. However, there is a phenomenon called a fire rainbow, and it can blow your mind. Interestingly, there is neither actual fire nor a typical rainbow. It all comes down to the curious refraction of sunlight through hexagonal ice crystals in cirrus clouds at high altitude. For this effect to occur, the sun must be fairly high above the horizon, and there must be certain cirrus clouds in the sky. As the light passes through the crystals, it splits into colors and forms a bright, striped halo. Visually, it might resemble blazing flames, though there is absolutely no heat involved. Such a rainbow often captivates onlookers and evokes their amazement. Imagine, darkness has fallen over the area and suddenly everything is lit up by a deep red glow. At first, you might think that somewhere a huge fire is raging or something extraordinary is beginning. Something like this has once happened in China when the sky turned a vivid blood red color and caused local residents to call the meteorological service. It turned out that the cause was not a supernatural cataclysm, but light emanating from a fishing vessel, which under certain atmospheric conditions was scattered across the entire region. This phenomenon is called Rayleigh scattering. Particles in the air, smaller than the wavelength of light, scattered the red beam, and it illuminated the sky so that the spectacle seemed otherworldly. Though it can be explained by physics, the mystical feeling remains. After all, few people expect to see a crimson glow in the middle of the night. We move on to a story that shocked and puzzled many at the same time. At a certain moment in Russian airspace, witnesses noticed something flying and hovering in midair. It was shaped like a disc and remained suspended so that a crowd gathered. People began filming it, taking photos, and sharing theories. All this happened during the winter holidays, lending an even more mystical tone to the event. Of course, there were skeptics who assumed that it was nothing more than a drone or some secret military device. After all, Russia, as everyone knows, may be hiding many technologies from prying eyes. However, there is still no definitive answer to what exactly was hovering in the sky. Skeptics face off against supporters of the unidentified flying object version, who argue that there were no typical mechanical noises, and the light signals behaved strangely. In northern Australia, there is an astonishing phenomenon called morning glory clouds, which appear as long tubular bands stretching for many kilometers, almost parallel to each other. They form very rarely and require specific conditions of humidity, temperature, and wind. Some lucky observers manage to see several of these misty strips at once, and it then seems as if the sky is divided by white roads. Amazingly, these tubes are not just static. Waves and currents flow within the clouds, sometimes accompanied by unexpected gusts of wind or even local storms. Local pilots and glider enthusiasts value these clouds highly, chasing after them in hopes of sliding along their entire length. The spectacle is fantastic, especially when the first rays of sunlight illuminate these aerial corridors. When we think of thunderstorms, we imagine flashes striking from cloud to ground. But in the upper layers of the atmosphere, mysterious flashes can also occur. Among them are elves, brief glowing rings or disks that appear very high above thunderclouds. Scientists first observed them only at the end of the last century, thanks to sensitive instruments. The idea is that powerful electrical discharges during a storm send electromagnetic impulses far up into the stratosphere and even beyond, causing the rarefied gases there to light up momentarily. Elves can appear reddish or orange and unfold at altitudes of tens of kilometers above the Earth's surface. If you do not see them, you would never believe it. Sometimes, when looking at a city at night, it can appear as though strong spotlights are beaming straight up from the ground. However, quite often this is just a natural phenomenon called light pillars. They arise because tiny ice crystals in the air reflect the light from street lamps, car headlights, and other sources, forming vertical luminous stripes. In winter, light pillars are especially clear because at low temperatures, there are more ice particles, and moisture in the air freezes faster. The moment when a whole row of street lamps turns the sky into a magical glow is both mesmerizing and somewhat frightening to unsuspecting witnesses. It can feel as if someone really has switched on gigantic beams straight out of a science fiction movie. Sometimes you see a rain cloud and notice raindrops streaming down, but the drops never reach the ground. This sight is called virga. It happens because warm or dry air closer to the surface manages to evaporate the water before it can land, leaving behind a kind of rainy tail that disappears halfway down. It may seem like just a simple interplay of temperature and humidity, but virga can affect the surrounding weather. Sudden gusts of wind and shifts in pressure often accompany it, creating confusion for farmers and meteorologists alike. Watching those lines vanish in midair is both beautiful and a bit eerie. Sometimes above icy deserts, a true rainbow spectacle unfolds. In the stratosphere, under extremely low temperatures, what are called nacreous or mother-of-pearl clouds can form. They shimmer with all sorts of colors and look like almost extraterrestrial. Most often, these clouds are found in Antarctica or the high latitudes of the northern hemisphere. During sunrise or sunset, they take on particularly bright shades of pink, violet, green, and golden. However, scientists have discovered a downside. Sometimes the chemical processes within these clouds contribute to ozone layer depletion, so we should treat these beautiful formations with caution. They are not fireballs nor lightning, but they look truly dramatic. St. Elmo's fire is a phenomenon in which plasma discharges, resembling miniature lightning bolts with a bluish or purple glow, suddenly begin to erupt from pointed or protruding objects, ship masts, airplane wings, tall spires of buildings. In the past, sailors considered these discharges either good or bad omens, believing them to be the manifestation of supernatural forces protecting a ship in a storm, or, on the contrary, predicting disaster. In reality, it all comes down to ionization of the air under a strong electric field, such as that found near thunderstorms or approaching powerful cyclones. Seeing it from outside is mesmerizing, but observing it from inside an airplane can be genuinely frightening. We rarely think of our sky as anything beyond clouds and lightning, but immense processes in deep space are unfolding overhead. One of the most breathtaking is the explosion of a supernova star. When a massive star reaches the end of its life cycle, it can explode, releasing a colossal amount of energy, bright light, and matter into space. From Earth, scientists observe these explosions with telescopes. They look like a suddenly appearing bright point of light that lasts for a while and then gradually fades. It is as if a new star is born in the night sky, though in reality, we are simply witnessing a cosmic cataclysm. Fortunately, our sun is not the kind of star likely to explode in such a way anytime in the next many billions of years. Sometimes around the sun, a bright ring appears, known as a halo. It can be nearly a perfect circle or form multiple arcs. Occasionally, the halo is colored in delicate pearly tones, and other times it appears almost white. The secret lies in the refraction and reflection of sunlight through hexagonal ice crystals. The ray passes through the crystal facets, scatters, and we see a halo of light around our main daytime star. By the way, a similar phenomenon can form around the moon at night, creating a mystical ambiance. In old times, people often interpreted the appearance of a halo as an omen of war or bad weather. One of the most enigmatic puzzles that scientists still cannot fully explain is ball lightning. It is described as a glowing sphere floating in the air and moving unpredictably. Moreover, some accounts claim that it can explode, leaving behind a strong smell of sulfur and causing damage around it. It is encountered extremely rarely and usually accompanies ordinary thunderstorms. It is believed that ball lightning arises from an especially powerful discharge, but laboratory attempts to replicate it have not yielded conclusive proof. Possibly, the phenomenon involves not only electricity, but also chemical reactions in the atmosphere. In other words, while we remain in the dark, ball lightning continues to both frighten and amaze. When a bright-tailed object appears in the sky, people immediately think of the legendary Halley's Comet, visible once every several decades. A comet is a gigantic snowball of ice and dust, and as it nears the sun, its ice begins to evaporate, forming a glowing tail. Unlike meteors, which mainly consist of stone and iron, comets orbit their star, describing intricate ellipses. Sometimes comets become so bright that they can be observed with the naked eye, even in cities. Then the hunt for photos and videos begins. Throughout history, such events were considered prophetic, predicting changes or disasters. The name sounds odd, but sundogs refers to a type of halo where two bright spots of light appear on either side of the sun. From afar, it can look as though there are three suns in the sky, one real one and two false ones. It is an extremely impressive sight and a bit disorienting. This effect is caused by the same refraction of sunlight through ice crystals. But in the case of sundogs, the rays form two additional spots at roughly equal distances from the real sun. Often, the edges of these spots have reddish tints, fading into white or bluish light. Despite its mystical appearance, there is nothing dangerous about such a display, and it is often visible at sunrise or sunset in frosty weather. For many years, observers and photographers mistook these stationary, saucer-like clouds for unidentified flying objects. Lenticular clouds form over mountains or hills when air currents flow around the terrain. The air rises, cools, and in one particular spot, it creates a layered shape, while the rest of the cloud remains motionless. Sometimes you can see an entire stack of several layers. Their form really does resemble a flying saucer, hence all the conspiracy theories. In reality, the phenomenon is entirely natural, simply a sign of specific wind patterns. Still, no matter how normal it is for meteorologists, lenticular clouds look so otherworldly that photos of them always spark excitement on the internet. The idea of rain tinted red sounds like something from a horror movie, but reality can present such surprises. In times past, people believed it to be a divine omen or a vision of war. In more recent times, scientists discovered that the cause is usually dust from desert regions, carried by strong winds into the upper atmosphere. It mixes with the clouds and then falls with the precipitation, coloring the water in bloody shades. In some parts of the world, where a desert lies close to a maritime climate, this happens more often than you might imagine. Still, if you ever witness such a scene, you will likely feel uneasy and involuntarily think about supernatural powers. During a thunderstorm, people usually notice the lightning that strikes from top to bottom. Yet above the clouds, in the upper atmosphere, special vertical flashes can appear, aimed upward. They are called red sprites. They occur very high up and often go unnoticed by the human eye, as they last only a fraction of a second. Sprites form during exceptionally powerful thunderstorm discharges, when energy is released not only toward the ground, but also into the ionosphere. Their reddish color stems from the different pressure and the distinct gases that react to the discharge up there. Scientists are still actively studying sprites and striving to capture them clearly on video, because visual data can help us better understand the mysterious nature of thunderstorm processes. Most people associate the night with stars and the moon, not clouds. But noctilucent, or night-shining clouds, can glow impressively even after the sun has gone below the horizon. They form from tiny ice crystals in the upper layers of the atmosphere and reflect sunlight that arrives at a very sharp angle. They can often be seen during summer twilight in higher latitudes, where nights are short and the sky never fully darkens. These celestial stripes and flows shimmer in blue-silver shades, creating the uncanny feeling that you have entered another dimension. Sometimes it seems that the sunset or sunrise burns with bright colors, yet there are also more unusual phenomena connected to fiery hues in the sky. Occasionally, the sky can flare up with such intense red, pink, or orange light that it looks like a global fire. Most often, this is caused by particles in the air, from natural sources, dust, sand, ash, to man-made pollution, industrial emissions. At a certain angle of the sun and with a particular level of humidity, those atmospheric particles start reflecting and refracting the rays in such a way that we perceive astonishingly vivid colors. Sometimes the display lasts just a few minutes, and other times the sky burns long enough to allow for spectacular photographs. Our journey through the mysteries of the heavens now comes to an end, but you likely still have questions and a thirst for more discoveries. Perhaps you know of other rare or unexplained phenomena that did not make it into our list. Share them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this selection, keep an eye on the sky. Maybe at the most ordinary moment, it will decide to show you something incredible. Join us in future explorations and observations. And for now, we suggest you check out our 2 previous top videos.